Hey, 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 hey. Black excellence, black beauty, and black pride. Black power from all diasporas coincide. Progressive truth and regression eventually collide. May the beauty of the people no longer be set aside. May the black queen's grace continually mesmerize the millions who couldn't see it when looking into her eyes. And the black man's plight no longer be the disguise. Oppression, emasculation, they wanna castricize him. Take him away from the black queen, put him inside prison for slave labor, he institutionalized. Wondering on the outside, is she willing to ride? Is she willing to ride? Is she willing to fight for the love, even despite the fact that he doing time? Love that conquers all will never fade with time. If she don't choose the love that appreciates every life, his flame might get dim and he may eventually.
You're still beautiful, Griff.
So this is his school year, and then every relay there's like a dog crown.
Look at them teeth.
Yeah, he's all over.
Griff is all about them treats.
Should we take a picture?
Oh, definitely should.
Yeah.
Griff is all about the treats, but we have to. What would you prefer? Should we just kneel down like right here?
Well, he could just sit right in front of us.
Wait, where are we looking, Rob?
I have no idea.
Right, with the treats. Okay, we're following the treat bag, Rob.
That is a photogenic fella. You know.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
He like, look, I did what you told me to do. I'm out. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. Bye, Griff. See you later.
We live?
Yes. So we are live at the NAACP Presidential Forum, and we just caught up with Griff. As some of you may know, Rob and I are proud Drake alums.
Proud
Drake alums.
I have the receipt.
I'm still paying my receipt. But it's good to be in the building of our alma mater.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Talking with some presidential hopefuls for the forum.
Yes, and we just heard from Senator Cory Booker, Senator Amy Klobuchar. I believe Congressman John Delaney is speaking right now.
Yes.
We're going to do our best to bring you the information here at this conference because we're talking about economics. We're talking about communities of color. We're talking about minorities, small business owners.
Job creation,
Yes.
prison reform, marijuana legalization, many
Healthcare.
things. Yes. Things that are impacting urban communities, and we want to make sure that voice is heard,
Yes.
that there are answers to some of the questions that we have, and just we get a better understanding of how urban communities will be impacted by these presidential candidates should they clinch the nomination.
Yes.
And they're just talking with us about going out to caucus for them, how to get more information about them, and we just want to make sure our viewers are well informed.
One thing that we do want to point out is there's two C words that we want to make sure people understand. The census that is coming out, the census is $10,000 a person in your community. We're talking about economic and closing wealth gaps. Make sure that people are participating in the census. The census is very important. And then secondly, the Iowa caucuses.
Mm-hmm.
Caucuses are very important. We're going to be doing caucus trainings so that people will know exactly what to do and how to do it. If you haven't seen, we just did an interview with Senator Cory Booker. We weren't able to catch Senator Amy Klobuchar, but we hope to get her back here pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you that are thinking, voting is not for me, this won't change anything. We have issues in our schools, issues in our streets. The country has forgotten about me. We have not forgotten about you. We are asking the candidates questions, and we want you to stay tuned to minimally be informed about who potentially your next commander-in-chief will be. We are taking those questions. So if you have questions and you want us to ask some things, hit us up on our Facebook feed, and we will take those questions out of there.
Yes. Look, you're watching the Urban Impact Show, and we'll be back live to give you more information here pretty soon.
Real soon. Urban Impact Show. Welcome.
How are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're changing around a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to have you hold that, and we just want to ask you just two questions about just kind of your urban impact we're here talking about economics.
Yes.
And so we want to ask just certain questions. We're going to move back a little bit.
No, just turn your button.
Oh,
Twist out.
awesome.
Me too?
You're good.
Yeah. So we just want to ask just a couple questions, and Shekinah is going to go ahead and kick us off.
Yes. So first, welcome to Drake University. We are both Drake alums. Very proud
Good
to
for
be
you.
here. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us. What does a John Delaney presidency look like, and how does that impact the urban community?
Well, we started investing in communities and people again, and that's what's been missing. And it's been particularly true in urban America, and increasingly it's becoming true in rural America, because there's been a real concentration of how capital flows in this country, both private capital and public capital. Last year in the United States of America, 80% of the money for startup businesses went to 50 counties in this country out of 3,000.
Yeah.
Huge concentration of opportunity. And that's because we don't have investments in a lot of these communities. We don't have infrastructure investments in these communities, and we don't have people starting new businesses in these communities. And the Delaney administration is going to change all that. By having real policies, we're going to build programs in the federal government. I've called for the creation of 2 new programs in the Small Business Administration, one for equity investments, one for debt investments, all targeted towards minority communities. I want to increase transparency. I'd like to know how all the publicly traded companies, their percentage of minority contracting, to make sure they're doing business with minority-owned contractors.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things I want to do. When I have a national infrastructure program, I want to have a disproportionate allocation to communities that are struggling. I want to require 25% of the government contracts in this country go to communities that need the jobs.
Yeah.
Now, Congressman, you were like one of the very first commercials I saw running for president.
First bus we saw.
Like you were one of the very first people out there. So you've been on this trail for a long time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit just about what you've done currently right now in your role to help minority-owned small businesses?
Well, I did something in my prior life that was probably the most significant thing maybe anyone's who's running for president has ever done. So I ran I was an entrepreneur. I started 2 businesses. They were both public companies. They were both successful. My second company focused on lending money to small to mid-sized companies. We made loans to 5,000 small to mid-sized companies all over the United States. I got an award from the Obama administration. It's called the Bank Enterprise Award. They give one of these a year. And it's for the firm, the financial firm, that is judged to do the most good in disadvantaged communities in terms of ethical lending practices. And we got the award. And the reason we got the award is because we focused on these communities. We made loans into these communities when a lot of people didn't want to make loans into these communities. And we found that it was good for us and good for them.
Yes.
You know, hardworking people looking for opportunities just like every American, you give them a shot, they're going to make it happen. And so I ran a business that actually got awarded by the Obama administration Treasury Department for ethical lending into disadvantaged communities. So the short answer to your question is I made a lot of loans into these communities. And it really helped.
That's
you know, I was in Detroit a couple months ago during the debates, and it was the second time I stopped in on a group called the Entrepreneurs of Color. And it's a group in Detroit where there's something called the Detroit Venture Fund, which was funded by the city of Detroit, state of Michigan, a bunch of nonprofits, and even some private companies. They put up money to invest in entrepreneurs of color doing business in inner city Detroit. And they've invested in 52 entrepreneurs of color, and 50 of them are still operating. That's like a better track record that you find anywhere.
Very true.
And they're all in the community. Most of them are women. And right,
Hear that, ladies?
and but you know they had such strong connections to their communities that when they actually started something, whether the last event was at a bakery, a fabulous bakery in inner city, you know the community wanted to support them.
So where can our viewers get more information?
JohnDelaney.com.
Look at you. You are
That's
ready.
it.
I know, that's right.
That's
Thank
it.
you so much for your time.
Thanks for what you do.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
we got the
Congressman.
mic,
Thank
we
you
got
so
the
much.
hands.
Thank you so much for stopping.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Have
This
a
was
great
awesome.
one.
Have a great one. Good luck out there.
Thank you.
So that was John Delaney. You're watching the Urban Impact Show, and John Delaney is a congressman, and he's been running for quite some time now.
Yes.
For president of the
You
United
brought up a
States.
good point. He is the first commercial I saw,
Yes.
the first bus I saw, the first political ad I saw. I'm like, this man has been running for a while.
Yeah. He's been out there. I mean, I started seeing his when we were campaigning for Deidre. Like, and I mean, that was like 2017, 2018.
I know, right?
Like, we were campaigning for Deidre, and I mean, God, here we are almost in 2020. He's been on this road a while.
Longevity is it.
Yeah, he's been on this road for a while. So, yeah. Well,
That was really interesting to hear him talk about the loans to small to medium-sized businesses.
Yeah.
How a lot of them were ran by women.
and 50, they gave them to 52, and 50 of them are still operating.
Doing well, thriving. Yeah.
That's, to me, that's how you create economic development and change the wealth gap.
Yeah, that's
You
how
know.
you create jobs. That's how
Yes.
you rotate dollars in a community.
Yes.
That's how you change lives.
Yes.
Even better if those interest rates were super low or non-existent. That'd be even better.
Even better.
But
Yeah.
you're watching the Urban Impact
Yes.
Show. We are at the NAACP Presidential Forum. We want to hear your questions.
Please.
Or how you want to engage with the candidates that are coming up.
Yes.
If you want to watch the forum, you can watch on KCCI, News Channel 8 here in the Des Moines, Iowa area.
Yep.
Or you can go to the Des Moines Register's website. And you just type in DesMoinesRegister.com, and at the top of their website they have a live feed. You have to be engaged, you have to be informed.
Yes.
We have to make some key decisions in the state of Iowa soon about caucus time, and then
Yes.
after that for a presidential election. So I'm Shekinah, this is the Urban Impact Show.
Stay tuned.
One more. 1, 2, 3. I am ready.
Great. So we are both Drake alums, so welcome to Drake University.
Yes.
Of course, this is the NAACP Presidential Candidate Forum. We're so excited that you're here and took time to chat with us. We just wanted to ask you two really quick questions. One, first, how would your presidency impact the urban community?
Greatly. And I say that because if there's a place that needs some infrastructure, it is principally in our urban areas. You can go to Center City, Philadelphia, and it's great. But you travel a little outside there, and you can find neighborhoods where the infant mortality rate is more high than it is in Syria. And so when I talk about investment in there, I'm talking not just infrastructure in terms of roads and all. I'm talking safety of schools.
Yeah.
I'm talking of providing for health care.
Yeah.
I'm talking about making sure that the moment a woman gets pregnant, that is when the next 2,000 days will be the most important in her child's education and in healthcare, with the WIC program fully funded, making sure SNAPS is available, doing what I did to the rest of the urban cities of this nation, and only half are doing it ever since I instituted and authored the legislation that said paperless meals for those who live by census that you are living in a poverty area. Why? You bring the people home, may never come back, and the administrative burden of it, just give it to everyone who's in that school. And so in my mind is those of it. But if I had to specifically go on two, all right, small business.
Yes.
Everywhere I go in a city, what they're saying is, I just want to start my own small business. 23 million people who work in their own small business. They're self-employed, so to speak, but they need the mother's milk, the startup money for doing it. African American communities have the least default rate of any demographic for the small business loans. That's why
Get it done, huh?
Yeah, and they get it done.
Yeah.
And that's why I established put the legislation in to have a minority entrepreneurial office within it, because you also have to target. It can't just be universal. You got to target things where there really are some issues that need to be fixed. And the second is, when I joined up there in Vietnam, they said, the Navy or jail. You know what? Today, they're only taking people who've graduated from high school. All right? But how about those who aren't? And we're still having a challenge with that. I mean, it's gone up a lot. So what are we doing with them? We need to make sure that they're skilled workforce. And we spend less than any developed nation on skilled training, labor training, 0.001% of GDP, and that's the other piece of the infrastructure I would do it. Those who work with their hands and their minds.
Well, for our audience, can you just introduce yourself? Tell them who you are, what you've done, and then we'll just go from there.
I joined up back in the Vietnam era, spent 31 years wearing the cloth of our country in war and peace. I was ashore in Afghanistan. I was on the ground when the war began. For a very brief period, head of the Navy Strategic Anti-Terrorism, came out, commanded the aircraft carrier battle for the strikes. When you're ashore in the Navy, they always invest in you, much like I want to invest in the youth of America for like training and all. They sent me to Harvard to get a doctorate in economics and government. So when I was ashore, I could work for great warriors like General Colin Powell, or for President Clinton in the White House's direct defense policy. But then I came home from the war. My daughter got brain cancer. 4 years old, got married late in life, couldn't convince anyone. I was 47. But when she came out of that surgery, and they said they couldn't get it, and I said, what's it mean? He says, she's got about 90 days, because it's glioblastoma, we think. This nation gave us the health care plan to save your life. So I went back to a nearly 2-to-1 Republican district, ran on one thing, retired Navy admiral, running on national security begins at home and health security. I became the second Democrat since the Civil War. I got reelected without spending a penny on one ad. I had 100% from NARAL pro-choice and F from the NRA, but they just knew we could disagree well. They trusted me. And so I ran against my party's desires. If you remember Anita Hill?
Yes.
Okay, my party's accepted her. Today, the Me Too accepted him on inspector, tried to humiliate her during the hearings.
Yeah.
Today, in the Me Too generation, that wouldn't happen. But accountability matters when it has consequences for you. So I put out a video about her and said, I have 6 sisters. This doesn't stand. Beat them. But as I said out there, it's better to offend God than a politician, because at least God will give you forgiveness. So they didn't give me any support. I went home, but I got back. Luckily, I did. My daughter's brain cancer came back this past year and a half. So I'm back in paying back this country, but I'm running to unite America this time. I want to beat Trump, but I got to have somebody. We need someone to unite us, or we're not going to meet the defined challenge of our time.
We definitely need to be united.
Yes.
Where can our viewers get more information
Thanks
about
for
your
that question.
candidacy?
If you just go to my website, joesestak.com, joesestak.com, and Sestak is spelled S-E-S-T-A-K, joesestak.com. My pop's an immigrant. Sometimes people, don't know the exact spelling of Sestak, but I'll say it again. No, joesestak.com.
Thank you so much, Admiral.
I'm
for
just a
coming
pleasure to
and
be
chatting
here.
with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service and
Yes.
Thank you,
serving
sir.
this country.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. I'm sorry I went on a little bit.
You're fine.
Thank you.
Thank
So-
you, man. Thank you.
So we are live here from Drake University, right here for the NAACP Economic Freedom Presidential Forum.
Yes.
And Shekinah and I, obviously, Urban Impact Show, we're asking these candidates questions that affect us as an urban community. So we need your help in doing that. We just heard from a few candidates so far. We're going to be here all day trying to grab as many of them as we can.
Yeah.
And so we want to continue to hear from you, our viewers, on what questions you want to ask them as we continue down this path.
Yes, and we also have questions that are important for those of you who may feel disenfranchised as a voter.
Yes.
Like, why should I vote?
Yes.
We have a country in disarray. We have a conversation about legalization of marijuana, but the community that is severely impacted, the urban community, is not included in that conversation, cannot stand to benefit from that because of price gouging and people getting into that market, and there being heavy prices put to get involved in that. The cost of things are going up, wages are not going up, unemployment, prison reform, lots of things that are impacting the urban community. Student loans, if you're like me. But it's real, and we are talking about real issues that are impacting the urban community, and we want you to stay engaged and informed.
Yes.
Allow us to bring you information that'll help you want to vote, or at least minimally be better informed about the offerings that we have before us. As you know, we live in Iowa, and we are the first caucus state.
Yes.
And soon enough, less than 90 days, less than 100 days.
February 3rd.
We will have an opportunity to caucus and tell the rest of the world your thoughts on who should be the next president of the United States. And we want to talk to those people. We want to hold them accountable. We want to know what their agenda is. How will their policies and plans impact the urban community, if they are aware of challenges that are in those communities, and how they will work to address them. So, hanging out with Rob here today. And we are talking to a bunch of folks. We just spoke with Admiral Sestak.
Yes. Joe.
Admiral Joe Sestak, and he gave us his information. Earlier, we had a brief conversation with Senator Cory Booker.
We've also spoken with Congressman John Delaney.
Yes.
And we have a ton more people to go if we can get them all. We are still working to get another senator who just had to run to Cedar Rapids, but we're working to get them here as well. And so we're looking forward to it. I know that Andrew Yang is speaking right now.
Yang
and
Gang.
so we're going to try to get the Yang Gang on here in just a little bit. We'll be right back.
Urban Impact Show. You got it. You got what you need, or you? Okay, we're good.
All right. So, Mr. Bennet, we just have a couple questions. We're the Urban Impact Show, and we focus on talking about issues that are affecting communities of color.
Yes. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and why you're running.
Well, my name is Michael Bennet. I'm a senator from Colorado. I've been in the Senate for 10 years, but before that I was the superintendent of the Denver Public Schools. It's a district of 95,000 kids. It's a district where we were dead last in terms of student growth of any district in my state. 15 years later, we're now leading the state in student growth. In fact, the kids in Denver are growing faster than any kids in the state, but there's so much more for us to do, and so that's why I decided to run for president. I don't want to be part of the first generation of Americans to leave less opportunity, not more, to our kids and our grandkids, and that's what we're at risk of being.
Yeah. Well, can you help our audience understand, what does a Michael Bennet presidency look like for communities of color economically?
I think it would look like the opportunity to finally begin to address the fact that we've got the worst income inequality that we've had in 100 years. And most of that is between white communities and communities of color. Now, the last 20 years or so, we've borrowed $5 trillion from the Chinese to give tax cuts to rich people. In my administration, we would reverse that so that we dramatically increase the child tax credit in this country, dramatically increase the earned income tax credit. And the studies have shown that we would reduce childhood poverty in a year by 40% in America. That would have a huge impact on kids of color in America and their families. It's not the only thing we need to do, but it would be a huge first step to put money into people's pockets so they can spend money on housing, healthcare, higher education, and early childhood education.
Tell our viewers how they can get more information.
Thank you. You can go to michaelbennet.com. It's BENNET, not two N's, one T. michaelbennet.com. And we'd love to have you sign up. We'd love to have you tell you more about us and learn more about you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Urban Impact Show. Thank you, Senator. Thank you. So we have a ton of stuff going on. This is exciting. We have our another interview getting ready to come up.
Yes, Rob kicked Eddie Mauro out, and now we are welcoming him back. No, we didn't kick him out. We know that our national elections are just as important as our local, state, and federal. They all work hand in hand together, which is why we want Mr. Mauro to come back and join us. Sorry about that quick intermission.
Sorry.
So thanks for letting me come back.
So if I can just say really quickly, when Eddie announced that he was running for U.S. Senate, we instantly got a phone call. So I will say that out of everybody that's going to be running for U.S. Senate, Eddie Mauro was the very first campaign to reach out to communities of color.
Which is very important.
Which is very important. He reached out to my right-hand guy, Will Sims, and said, hey, we need to set up a meeting because it's important for our campaign to learn more about these issues.
Right.
So I do want to give you that shout out, which was huge. And
he's from the South Side.
Yes.
And I live on the South Side.
Yes, you do.
So Eddie is cool with us.
Well, let's not tell everybody where you live.
Oh, you're right.
You know? Lord.
But I'm saying, we have an election coming up locally, and there is an opportunity to talk about the South Side and see what we are going to do about the South Side.
Yes. And Eddie, will you mind just introducing yourself,
yes,
who you are, to our audience, and just tell them a little bit about you?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me.
No problem.
Eddie Mauro, lifelong Iowan. Been working in this community all my life. And I got involved especially in peace and justice issues at the age of 14. I got involved with the Catholic worker movement, Catholic Jesuit, where I was taught to work with the homeless, feed the hungry, fix up shelters. As I got older, I expanded that kind of activism, working in the community to fight for justice. I've been doing that nearly all my life. And I'm running for the United States Senate today because we need a voice that's going to fight for vulnerable people. Those are folks that can be folks that are vulnerable for economic reasons, or folks that are vulnerable for health reasons, folks that are vulnerable because of their race or their creed, or the person that they love. So that's what brings us here today. We want to keep doing that. It's a great event you're having here today. Great conversations about the African American community. I'm happy to answer some questions about that.
Perfect.
So, just one question.
Is it my turn? Are you always switching this up on me?
It's your turn. Go ahead.
Well, tell us, What has really spurred you to run for this U.S. Senate seat?
So it's a number of factors. One is that our government remains broken and it underperforms. And it underperforms in particular for again, the most vulnerable people in our communities.
Yeah.
And today we're talking specifically about the African American community. There's a great forum going on in the room across the hall from me today. Presidential candidates are out here talking about what's important to them, what policies are important to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And well, you kicked me off for the presidential, but that's okay. The United States is very important. The United States Senate can be very important for this as well.
Yes, very true.
Because our friends on the other side of the aisle have not done a very good job for the African American community when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to economic equality, when it comes to criminal justice, and the injustice that we've endured for decades now. And we need the right kind of leaders, not only in the United States president, but in the United States Senate here in Iowa. It's not going to be afraid to speak up and speak out on these issues that are very important to us, very important to our communities.
So one final question for you, Mr. Mauro. So you get elected to the United States Senate. What does that mean for the African Americans and communities of color?
It means two things. That you're going to have somebody that's going to go vote the way that we expect somebody in the United States Senate that's a Democrat from the state of Iowa is going to vote. They're going to vote to make sure that we put people, that we bridge the gap that we have right now in our communities between people of color and myself. I've enjoyed white privilege, and I can't do anything about that. God made me who I am, but I can go fight for people that haven't been able to experience the same. Right? So we want to go do that. We want to make sure everybody has the same educational opportunity. I've taught and coached in some really good schools, and I've also taught and coached in schools here in the city of Des Moines, in the inner city, and they're behind. And they're not behind because they're bad kids. They're behind because we've done a bad job with policies for their schools.
Right.
So I want to go vote for the right policies. But more importantly than that, we need a voice. We need a leader that's not going to be afraid to go up and talk. We're running for a number of reasons. I'm running against Joni Ernst, our current senator, who does not have the courage to speak out against a president who has hateful rhetoric, against a Congress that won't do anything for our African American community. And so we need more than somebody's going to go vote. We need a voice and a leader that's going to go up and take the mic. They're going to stand up tall and proud and talk for the African American community, for our Hispanic community, for immigrants, for the LGBTQ community, and for all those that are out there. Right? And if we do that in a meaningful way, then I think I could do something really special. That's why.
That's really cool. A lot of people are talking about how civil rights are under attack now. From several different communities that are present within the urban community. And so it's really important to hear someone that's running for office say that I am willing to speak loud and proud about issues that are impacting you, and I'm going to use my privilege to stand in the gap or in your space to speak on that behalf. So I'm very happy to hear that. And I think it's great. How can people get more information about your policies, what you stand on, who you are?
So EddieMauro.com, EddieMauro.com. You'll find our policy positions on there. Go check us out. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Look at
all
you.
Those fun places.
Everywhere. EddieMauro.com, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. He's a South Sider. He's Iowa born and bred, and he is willing to stand up for issues impacting the urban community. You are watching the Urban Impact Show, and we will be right back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Eddie.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the Urban Impact Show. Our show is focused on the urban community, talking about economic issues as we're here that are impacting us as a community, whether it be Black, Hispanic, those types of individuals who are sometimes marginalized when it comes to economic development.
Yes. And we want to take a little bit time to chat with you about your candidacy for president and maybe introduce you to some of our audience. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what spurred you to run for president of the United States.
Absolutely. So I'm Kurt Sackerman. I am a non-establishment candidate, which is why it's been very hard to get on stage and get any kind of media attention. So I appreciate the attention you're going to give me to get my message out. So I have lived in 41 out of 50 states. I've lived and or worked in 41 out of the 50 states. and I grew up in Mexico. I lived 6 years in Mexico when I was a young guy. So hablo un poquito español, y me encanta hablar español. But I think the reason I like what we're doing here today is because I have done a lot of work with minority communities. I spent let me get back to your original question. You said, why are you running? Partly why I'm running is because the Constitution allows me to run. Now, there's a lot of obstacles that are in the way now. There's money, and I'm not rich and I'm not famous, but that's not stopping me. I have a message I want to get out. And so one of the things that, one of my main priorities is I want to make sure that we understand what we need to do strategically to win back the White House in 2020. And so I have a message out there. I think we're going to call it something around it's not the yellow brick road to the White House, but it's the blue brick road to the White House. And so we're putting out a strategy of what it really takes to beat our opponents in 2020. So I'm going to be putting that out soon. I think it's a little different than most other candidates. It's unique, and so I want to make sure that if I don't progress much further in this candidacy, that I at least can get other candidates to understand what it really takes. And I've done a lot of research around this as far as what it takes to win the Great Lakes area, the Midwest, etc. So I think that's one piece of why I'm running, because I think I have a strategy that will truly win. Back to what you do. I have spent most of my life working in communities, managing government grants, delivering government services. I actually went undergrad to Ohio State University, and as a matter of fact, go Buckeyes, yes, that's right. And so my undergrad degree was in criminal justice. So one issue, especially when it comes down to minority communities, that especially passionate about is the criminal justice reform. So I spent my first 10 years out of college. I spent that time working in public schools in Columbus, Ohio. And my goal was to help disadvantaged communities, which a part of that was African Americans. There was Hispanics, and there was also the white community that are disadvantaged as well. So I spent a lot of time doing special education programs for disadvantaged students who have disparities. And there's a program called Junior Achievement that I actually delivered in more African American communities that made sure that students understand what it takes to have a business and to be economically sound.
So as we wrap up, I know we have another guest getting ready to come up, but as we wrap up, can you tell people where they can get more information about you?
Absolutely. So you can actually find out about me and my bio and everything else I've done with the African American community and minority community at www.kurtforamerica.com.
Kurtforamerica.com. You heard it right here on the Urban Impact Show. Thank you so much. Best of luck.
See you soon. So he talked about, things that he's done for the African American community and just different communities all over. That's
and then
why
he
we're
speaks
here.
Espanol poquito.
Oh man, he spoke that
Spanish
very fluently,
very
didn't he?
little Spanish is what he was saying.
Very fluently.
We're rotating.
So we are now just going to pause for a quick second.
Pause for the cause.
And we're going to wait on our next presidential candidate to come, and we're going to try and see if we can get another interview.
Yes, we will do that. We will be right back. You're watching the Urban Impact Show.
Watching the Urban Impact Show.
One, two, three.
Perfect. Thank you. Senator Harris, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Of
So I'm
course.
Shekinah.
Hi, Shekinah.
And we are the Urban Impact Show. We had a great opportunity to talk with Mayor Garcia last week.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Last week of the LBC.
Yes.
And
he is holding it down in the LBC. He is amazing. He's really amazing.
Super great to have one. We had a great conversation
Oh, good.
with him. We just have two quick questions and we're out of here.
Okay.
So, Senator Harris, for our viewers, will you just tell them who you are? I feel like, I was at the barbershop yesterday and they were like, who is this black lady you running around with? and I'm like, she's running for president, guys. Like, we should know what she's talking about, right? So if you wouldn't mind, just tell them who you are.
Yeah. Well, how much time do I have? As much time
as you like, but there was.
Well, I was born in Oakland to parents who were active in the civil rights movement. I grew up in a community that was hardworking, that raised the children of the community as the children of the community. I mean, literally, if you did something down the street, by the time you got home, your mother knew. I'm serious. I'm serious. I grew up attending 23rd Avenue Church of God in Oakland, California. I grew, was in the choir. Everybody in my family loved to cook. I went to
pancakes.
Yes, with Deidre. I went to Howard University, which is where I ran for my first office as freshman class representative of the Liberal Arts Student Council. And I have spent my life fighting for justice, be it when I was elected the first black woman to be a district attorney in a state of 40 million people, to when I was the Attorney General of California, taking on the big banks who were engaged in predatory lending practices, to being in the United States Senate, being a leader on issues like the need to get rid of the bail system in this country that basically is an economic justice issue where people who have money get out of jail and people who don't have money stay in jail. And now I'm running for President of the United States because I do believe justice is on the ballot.
Yes.
And I'm prepared to fight for everyone's right to have fairness and to have equality and equity in the system. And I hope to earn your support.
No, that's right. Last question for you, really quickly. Sorry, I guess you should hope. Last question for you. How do you hope to engage disenfranchised voters? People who are like, we're talking about legalizing marijuana, but it's really impacted the urban communities in ways. How are we going to see that come back and touch us?
Yeah.
We see this Me Too movement that started because of us and now it's taking off without us. How do we engage those people to get them involved, civically engaged?
I mean, what we have to do is, one, I will tell you a large part of my focus is on what we need to do to bring resources into the community. So I have a plan to put $100 billion federal dollars into the community, most of whom have been the subject of predatory lending practices, but also institutionalized racism that has taken the form of redlining and just not allowing people access to home ownership. So a large part of that investment is in families that are living in federally subsidized housing to help with down payment and closing costs to buy homes. I have a $12 billion, well actually it's a $60 billion plan for what I'm going to do to put federal money into our HBCUs. I am a proud graduate of an HBCU. It is also about what we need to do to close the racial wealth gap around investing in black entrepreneurship. And so that is about billions of federal dollars going into supporting folks who are starting businesses that, as we know, the business leaders in our community, they're not only leaders of business, they're civic leaders. They are hiring locally. They are mentors to the young people in the community. So that kind of thing.
So last thing, Senator, will you just tell people where can they get more information, whether it's supporting your campaign, donating to your campaign? Can you give them more info on where they can get that?
Please visit KamalaHarris.org. Come by our campaign office. We've got them all over the state. And please caucus in Kamala's corner on election night. I need you. I cannot do this without you. Look, we are challenging people. We are asking them to see something they've never seen before, which is a black woman being president of the United States. But when we are deep of faith, and we believe in what can be, even when people haven't seen it before, I know that we have the ability to make it happen. So I'm counting on you, and I hope to have your help. Take care.
I know that's right. Thank you so much.
Kamala's Corner.
Kamala's Corner.
Hey,
Kamala's
you're watching
Corner.
the Urban Impact Show. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Johnson.
I'm Shekinah Young.
And we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you, Rob.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Urban Impact Show. I am one of your hosts, Rob Johnson.
I'm Shekinah Young.
And we are live at the NAACP Economic Freedom Presidential Forum here at Drake University. Shekinah and I's alma mater, well, we're still paying. So we have a very special guest with us, and it is the president of the Iowa-Nebraska chapter for the NAACP. So we're talking about the states.
Yes.
So there are individual city chapters where there are presidents in those cities, but we have the honor and the privilege of having the statewide president, Mrs. Betty Andrews.
Welcome.
Yay! I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much, Rob and Shekinah.
Thank
This
you
is awesome.
so much for chatting with us. These kind of
Absolutely.
events are so important, especially this year. There's been a lot of conversation about civil rights being under attack and different things that are going to the Supreme Court and how our rights and our liberties are being impacted. So tell us, can you speak to a little bit the importance of the NAACP hosting this kind of event?
Absolutely. So I would say the main thing is the fact that we are here and we're having the conversation.
Yes.
Excuse me. And you know, as we're looking at, and specifically this town hall is about economics, and when you think about the disparate rates that we're seeing, there are several reports that have talked about how Iowa and specific areas in Iowa are lagging far behind when it comes to African Americans, and that's financially and in a number of other ways. So when we have the opportunity to talk about it and to kind of kick the tires of the candidates to make sure that they are really understanding what matters to our community, it is of huge importance. Now, we just can't kick the tires. We also have to hold them accountable too. So this is part of laying a foundation for holding people accountable as well. So it is extremely important, and you're right, we are constantly under attack. So when you think about one of the quotes that I often use is the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But you have to think about it like this, and that Dr. King said that, you have to think about the fact that bending toward justice is not something that happens without action. And it is not something that happens without people. We bend the arc toward justice. And when injustice is like weeds. So you pull one, something else can pop up. You've got to have maintenance work.
Injustice is like weeds. That's tweetable.
Absolutely.
That's Facebookable.
I mean,
that's Facebookable.
It is. I mean, you have to continually maintain and manage while you're working to improve some other things. You got to be watchful for everything else. So that accountability factor is extremely important.
Definitely.
So last question, we've been asking everyone 2 questions, and one thing, speaking about your role just as you go across these states and understanding truly the impact that this stuff has on African American people, can you speak to some of the work that the NAACP is doing right now to help disenfranchised voters, people who are not engaged, the criminal and justice forum that we just had? Can you speak a little bit to that stuff that the NAACP is doing right now?
Absolutely, and thank you for that opportunity, because a lot of times people think, well, the NAACP is not doing anything, and the truth is we're doing a lot. We're often the hidden hero in many situations, and policy. In the last few years, we've gotten several laws passed that people are not even going to go to jail, and they will never know it was because of the NAACP. We have we've been working on racial profiling, getting an anti-racial profiling law, and that's something that we continue to contend for and fight. In our Iowa City area, we were able to guide one of the communities in getting an anti-racial profiling ordinance. So the NAACP did that. We have seen the beginning of banning the box, which means allowing people who may have gone to prison, when they come back in the community, they have a fair chance for employment. We are working on education. We're working definitely in economics. So a lot of the questions that are being asked here today are reflective of the work that we are doing in economics. And so we're working in every area that will affect the well-being of not only African Americans, because sometimes people think it's just African Americans. Our work is good for African Americans, but it's good for all Iowans. It's good for all people. And we have several units across the state. We're also working with our African communities as well, because they get a lot of that, and sometimes they get even worse. So all of those, we're working very hard to make sure.
Yes.
The other thing that we're doing is we're making sure people understand. So forums like this are educational.
Yes.
We just wrapped up the Iowa Summit on Justice and Disparities,
Yes.
and that was a huge
Shout out to
deal.
you guys. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we have been working through that summit to make sure that Iowa's criminal justice disparity is closed. That gap is closed.
Yeah.
When I think about how Iowa was once ranked number 1 in incarcerating African Americans, that's huge.
That
and
is-
and it
that
was
is
at a
right.
rate of 1 to 14.
But
So
yet,
for
Des
every
Moines is
one
like
white,
the best place to live, right?
Well, that's the tale of two cities, as we know about. But and that has dropped a little bit since in the 7 years we've worked on this summit.
Yes.
But this year, the governor announced, the Iowa governor announced the criminal justice focus group, which will address criminal justice reform.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about a bias-free criminal justice criminal justice system.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about making sure that when people return home from being incarcerated, it makes a difference. And I know a lot of people that haven't been incarcerated may say, well, what does this matter to us? Well, it matters because you may not have been incarcerated, but I'm sure that someone in your life, is touched by this. And if they're touched, you're touched.
Yeah.
And not to mention, we're dealing right now with the case of racial profiling that we've seen in one of our communities. And dealing with the fact that if we ensure that there are ordinances and laws against that, we can prevent your child or your family member from going into the prison system.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
absolutely. So lots of things.
I think the NAACP has a lot of great events going on at different levels. So federal, we're talking to people who want to run for U.S. Senate or who want to run for President of the United States, but also on the local level.
Yes.
There's school board things going on. There are forums
All
for
over the
local
state.
council members going on.
Yes.
And that is so important because each of those work hand in hand with one another. We can't just talk about a president of the United States and forsake the school board, whether you have someone in the school system or
Because local
not.
politics matter. And,
Definitely does
and that is
matter.
so important. One of the things I wanted to just remind people that, a lot of times people think about, why the NAACP is or is not relevant. And one of the things that makes us relevant is that we are not just national, and we are not just local. We are national, we are regional, we have NAACPs in every little hamlet of this country. And that's huge. So when you're dealing with the brand that is the NAACP, you're dealing with a force of nature. And so that's powerful, and you're absolutely right. It is extremely, as a matter of fact, when I addressed the audience today, one of the things that I talked about was how important the local vote is. So we're looking at our mayoral races, our school board races, our council races. Those are important because those decide what's happening in your communities. Right now in Des Moines, we're fighting for a anti-racial profiling ordinance, and who's on that city council matters. Okay? So we want to make sure we vote for the right people in those situations. And our kids obviously matter. So we want to make sure we vote for the school board member that represents our cause.
You're right. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, girl. I understand. I'm a former broadcaster, so I know it's like, girl, let me answer this next question. So.
Where can our viewers get more information about what's going on with the NAACP, upcoming events that are happening, but also I hear there's a small banquet going
Absolutely.
Let me just say, I got my ticket.
I'm so glad you have your ticket for November 9th, the Des Moines Branch Freedom Fund Banquet. But I want to back you up a little bit because also on that day, we have our state convention. That's going to be at the Fort Des Moines Black Officers Museum. So that starts at 9 a.m. So spend the whole day with us. This has been Freedom Week, but spend the whole day with us. And you can certainly just Google Des Moines NAACP, or Iowa, Nebraska NAACP at Gmail. I'm sorry, Iowa, Nebraska NAACP.org. All of those, we're Googleable. We're on Facebook, so you can find all of our information there. So
thank you so much for the work that you do in the
Absolutely,
community. We appreciate it.
Likewise, thank you.
So you tuned into the Urban Impact Show. the president of the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP chapter. Just told you about all the things that are happening right now. We're live from the NAACP Economic Freedom Presidential Forum here at Drake University.
Yes, and if you want to watch the end of the forum, I think there are a couple more candidates left. KCCI News Channel 8. Go to Channel 8 on your regular dial if you are local in the Des Moines area, or DesMoinesRegister.com. You're watching the Urban Impact Show.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back.
Secretary, thank you so much for joining us. We're live on Facebook, and there's so much going on. There's so many candidates in this race. We're the Urban Impact Show, Shekinah Young and Rob Johnson. But can you tell our audience just like who is the former Secretary of Education? Like who are you and what are you standing for?
Yeah. First of all, thank you all so much for having me here. And hello, which camera is it? There you go.
Either one.
There you go. One. Hello, y'all. I hope everybody's watching on Facebook. Happy to be with you. I'm running for president because I believe in an America where everyone counts. Mm-hmm. And I especially feel that because I've lived that. I grew up with a single mom who was raising my brother and me on the west side of San Antonio, grew up in a segregated neighborhood, going to segregated public schools. And throughout my time in public service, I've tried to make sure that we speak for the most vulnerable among us, and that no matter who you are, that you can reach your American dream the way that I feel very blessed to have reached mine. Yeah. So you ask, who am I fundamentally as a person, as a candidate? I'm a fighter. Mm-hmm. I'm a fighter for the people that need fighting for. Yeah. I'm a voice for the people that need to be spoken for. Yeah. In this campaign, we've been running a little bit differently. A few days ago, I was at a jail in D.C. visiting with people who were incarcerated to understand directly from them instead of just talking at them about what we need to do to reform our criminal justice system.
That's good.
I've visited with folks in Flint who were impacted by the water crisis there, the lead poisoning, and then actually put out a plan on how we can make sure that we reform our laws and our investments so that lead is never a major public health threat again. I've talked about the victims of police brutality on the last debate stage. I said, look, police violence is also gun violence. And I've spoken up for those who are homeless, who simply want a safe, decent, affordable place to rest their head at night.
Yes.
So I think, in this campaign, there are a lot of people running. I think we're at 16 people now. We were at 25 once.
Yes.
But I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting for people that need a voice.
Yeah. That's super cool to hear that, and I personally appreciate that. What would you say to the voter out there that's disenfranchised, that feels like, I voted before and my vote doesn't count? There is a Me Too movement that does not include the black woman, though we started that movement. There are people dying in the streets at the hands of police and no justice seems to be happening. There's conversation about legalizing marijuana, and it has negatively impacted urban communities in a grand way, but that conversation about legalization isn't including those communities, or they're putting pricing in place to create licenses for this that puts those communities out of the conversation. What would you say to people that are experiencing that and are on the fence about why should I vote? Why should I be engaged? Why should I caucus? Why should I care?
I say, number one, I see you. And I don't only see you now. I saw you when I was growing up as a child. I saw you in my neighborhood, in my schools.
Wow.
I understand your concerns. I grew up with a mom who was a Chicana activist who was coming from the outside, trying to make progress. And one of the things that I felt a lot of times was a frustration, a skepticism, sometimes even a cynicism about whether our democratic process could ever actually really help the people that needed the most help and bring justice to communities that for so long have been unjustly treated. And the frustration that comes with waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. But I'd also say that this system is the only one we got. And it's better than just about, I think, any system out there, any other system. And so one of the things that I learned from my mother's activism was that the victories, they almost never come overnight. and the civil rights movement was a great example of that. But they do come, but only if we get engaged, only if we vote, only if we make our voice heard. There are people in this democratic process where their money is their voice. They have a bigger voice than they should. That means it takes a lot of folks that may not have a lot of money, but have a big, powerful voice. And so I would say, you know, don't give up. Keep pushing, and that I see you and I hear you, and I'm running for you.
Yes.
Well, Secretary, thank you so much for joining in with us. Real quick, before you head out, can you tell people where they can get more information about you?
Yes, and thank you all again for having me.
No problem.
So folks can go to my website, Julian for the Future. That's Julian, Julian, or JulianCastro.com. And check out my vision for the future of our country, all of our plans, and even make a contribution if you're so inclined.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
That's right. Thank you for saving me there.
No problem.
On Facebook, it's just my name, Julian Castro. On Instagram, it's Julian Castro TX. And on Twitter, my handle is just my name, Julian Castro.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
You've been
Secretary.
great. This
Thank
is
you all.
great. Thank you
so much.
Thank you all.
See you soon.
Take care.
Good luck.
So you're watching the Urban Impact Show, and you heard it from Secretary Julian Castro. Stay engaged. Don't stop. Do not let the process or what's going on in the world around you push you to be not civically engaged. We can do this, and we are all about it on the Urban Impact Show.
Yes. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more candidates so that you are informed and you can get engaged. All right.
We're the fun crew.
Right.
We don't know about those other people.
I think I'm funny. It's not good. This is not good.
You are.
So just a quick little tidbit. We're live on Facebook.
Yes.
We are the Urban Impact Show. Our show focuses solely on getting voters that are of the urban community. And we focus on making sure that they have information about candidates like yourself. There's so many people running and there's so much going on. It's hard to kind of get everything. Yep. So this show provides these individuals an opportunity
Specific information.
to get information from our candidates. So we're going to just ask two questions. I'll kick it off.
Yes.
And the first question, if you wouldn't mind, will you just tell our viewers, who are you? What are you running for and why?
So, look, I'm running for president. And I'm running for president for a simple reason, which is I believe that corporations have bought the democracy. I believe they're getting everything they want. I believe the American people are shut out, and that we're not going to get any of the things we want, whether it's healthcare or education, clean air and water, or a living wage, unless we first beat the corporations and take back the government.
Yes.
Having said that, I don't think there's any way to look at inequality in this country and not talk specifically about race. And I'm somebody who started with my wife a community bank focused on economic justice, environmental sustainability, and supporting businesses owned by women and people of color.
Wow.
So I know that at the very heart, we need economic opportunity specifically aimed at people who've been denied it, not just for decades, but for hundreds of years.
Yeah, that's really good. What would you say to the voters that may feel disengaged, right? So you're not talking to me. I voted before, nothing changed. We have a conversation going on about the Me Too movement, and black women are not involved in that. Though we started that, we're not involved in the progression of that. We're talking about legalization of marijuana, and the community that has been most impacted by this being illegal is these urban communities, but we're not involved in the conversation about that legalization or licenses to sell or grow these things or pricing people out. What would you say to those people that are like, why should I care? Why should I be involved?
So let me say this. I have started one of the largest grassroots organizations in the United States. It's specifically been focused on registering and engaging young people and people of color. And what I would say is this. It is absolutely critical that those populations show up in a huge way. And I can promise you, I know that people don't vote because they think the system's broken. I know that people don't vote because they think no one tells the truth. No one actually deals with my issues. Why am I going to be part of a failed system? I know that because our organization has started the conversation with hundreds of thousands of people, including in our Black Lives Rising organization with those points. So let me say this. As president, I guarantee you, I will never forget that this system has overlooked and forgotten young people and people of color.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. There are three things I'll say. I will tell the truth. I will act boldly. And I will deliver if you give me a chance and give me your trust. I promise you, I will deliver.
All right.
It's good stuff.
On the closes?
Well, tell us a little bit about where people can get more information about you. They heard something you said, they're intrigued. Who's this Tom guy? How can we get more info?
Look, the easiest thing to do is go to tomsteyer.com, and my last name is spelled Steyer. So please don't wait for me to run yet another TV ad. I'm begging you here. tomsteyer.com.
He has a lot.
tomsteyer.com. You heard it here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure. You're watching the Urban Impact Show. We just had businessman Mr. Tom Steyer on.
Yes.
You've seen his commercials. You've heard his voice. And we want to make sure that on this show that you have the opportunity to get that information. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be right back.
Right back. Thank you. Good stuff.
And we're live from the NAACP Presidential Economic Forum.
Long day. Impactful event.
Yes, and we are the Urban Impact Show.
Yeah.
And we also believe that not only is it important for you to know what these presidential candidates are talking about as far as policy, as far as how we're going to be affected, the urban community itself, but it's also important to understand what locally is going to happen, because if you want to pass an ordinance that talks about racial profiling, then your city council needs to vote for it.
If you have potholes in your street, your city council needs to know about that. Loud noises going on, but that just lets you know how live we are. But also, every day when you wake up, you walk out into your street, the businesses that you see in your community, your city council impacts that.
Yes, so it's just as important.
Even more important, that's what touches you every day. And the federal government has to work with the state and the local in order for us to be an effective community and have rippling impacts, pass on great things to the youth and the next generation, which is why, despite our feet hurting and us being hungry, we have been coming to you live for a very long time today. But we could not leave here without talking to at least one local candidate for your Des Moines City Council.
Yes, we're super excited to have the Miss Jackie Easley McGhee, who is running for City Council at large and just received the Des Moines Register endorsement. Congratulations.
Hi, Shekinah. It's wonderful to be here. And you are right, it was an impactful day. I've been here most of the day, except for when I went to the Fort Des Moines Museum to honor our veterans today who are doing a mass of colors, another powerful ceremony.
Yes.
But I was very intrigued by your statement, how important local elections are.
Yes.
It is true that many of the decisions that are made at both the school board and the city council elections affect us almost as much as federal elections.
Yes, every day, yes.
And so that's why the theme for my campaign is called Bridging Gaps, because I believe that there are gaps remaining in infrastructure. You talked about potholes. And while the city does have a plan to work on the potholes, it's communication that is the key. How do you know what road repair is happening in your street, when it is, when it's going to be? So communication is important. Sidewalk safety. We need to be able to, our youngsters, be able to ride their bikes to school, be able to have safe routes for pedestrians. So infrastructure is part of my Bridging the Gaps. Affordable housing. As you know, I sit on the City of Des Moines Plan and Zoning Commission. And we've spent the better part of this year, and actually 2 or 3 years, looking at the city code. Our code was about 50 years old, and it needed to be revamped for today's economy. And so we looked at code requirements such as, in addition to minimum square footage, which is kind of bubbled to the top, but we looked at do you need vinyl siding on your home? What kind of roof should be built? How far back should curbs be on the street? So really very intricate details like that that make a difference in neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
And whether people want to build or move into that type of neighborhood. Now, as you have heard, the Planning and Zoning Commission sent the code back to the council with no minimum square foot requirements and no garages. Because 13 of us felt strongly that we want flexibility for the builders who are building affordable homes. For many of our community, 42% of African Americans are homeowners, but that's as compared to 72% in the majority community. I want to see us be able to move people to home ownership and have options and have affordable options. And then the last part of my bridging the gap is for services that the city promised under the local option sales tax that many of our community went out and supported to make sure that we had revenue. And to me, the most important of those is the mobile mental health crisis unit for youth. The county does a good job in establishing mental health services for adults, but our youth needs something that is more culturally sensitive and something that is more appropriate to the needs that they have. As you know, we've experienced in our community a high percentage of suicide rate, particularly among vulnerable populations. And I believe that the city needs to live up to their promise to provide that service.
Well,
That's a lot.
Yeah, you told us everything that we wanted to know.
Did we even get a question in?
No, that answers all of the questions.
You go ahead. You are all about it.
Go ahead,
that is really important. I'm happy that you mentioned the issues with the zoning and the minimums for square footage and minimums for having a garage or not having a garage. That really does impact communities. Des Moines is mostly an urban community, and when you talk about urban community, there's a conversation about gentrification going on. We've had issues in the past with the local level of government about rules that were placed for food trucks that disproportionately impacted groups, underrepresented groups more than broader represented groups. And so representation is a key factor that matters. There's lots involved in the local election process that people may not think of. But let us know, in our viewing audience, how we can get more information about your candidacy.
Well, thank you. Good question. I do have a Facebook page. It's Jackie for DSMAL, Des Moines at Large. And then my Gmail address is if they want to contact me.
Yes.
And I have been getting really good questions.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Jackie for Des Moines, DSMAL at gmail.com.
Okay.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, hey, we've been live all day from the NAACP Economic Freedom Presidential Forum. We've talked to candidates all about what's going on. We've even discussed with people about how to make sure that you're getting the right information, and if somebody that you have liked or something that you've heard that you want more information of, that is why we exist. Also, local candidates like Jackie Easley McGhee is running for office because it affects you on an everyday basis.
Yes, we even talked with Eddie Mauro, who's running for Senate, right?
Yes, running for the United States Senate.
He's born and bred here in Iowa, and he's hoping to impact some things on the Senate level. And this is what we need to hear. So this is why we are here. This is why we are present, the Urban Impact Show. It has been a great day.
It has been.
My feet hurt. His feet hurt. We are hungry. But we thank you so much for your time today and tuning in. If you have any questions or you want to see something, please let us know in comments or send us a Facebook message. But you have been watching the Urban Impact Show, and we are so happy to bring this information to you.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in.
See you next time.